Welcome back. So security is top on our agenda this morning. The concern about what's happening in Nigeria's northeast and northwest is huge, and especially for important reason. In the northeast, we've heard reports of resettlement, of people being returned to their ancestral homeland with the construction of some buildings by Governor Professor Babagana Zulum. But now, particularly in the last couple of months, we've seen a resurgence of insurgency in Borno State. So what exactly is happening? Let's try to understand with this segment. And we have joining us Mr. Abdul Umar, who is an Assistant Inspector General of Police, Zone 16. He joins us from our studio in Kano. Good morning and welcome to the program, AIG Umar. We also have Dr. Kabir. Welcome, sir. Yeah. We also have Dr. Kabir Adamu, who is a Security Risk Management and Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, who joins us via Zoom from Katsina. Good morning and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you and good morning.
So let's start off this way. One would have thought that, the infighting between ISIL and Jan, that's Jama'atu Nasir, was, I'm not getting the full name correctly, but was gained in the northeast, particularly with the peace that we've experienced in a couple of years in that part of the country. But we've now seen, with that suicide bombing some months ago, and now killings, in fact attacks on the soldiers in the northeast. So what exactly is happening? How do we understand this resurgence? Why are they regrouping? I'm going to start with you, Dr. Kabir.
All right, thank you very much, and I must commend your station for highlighting this very complex and concerning development. No doubt, we've seen tremendous progress in the theater of operations in the northeast of the country. As you're aware, there is a military operation called Operation Hadinkai that has been active in Borno State for more than a decade, and several progress has been made. I'll divide them into two. The approach by the federal government, which is being led principally by the Operation Hadinkai, which is essentially a military operation. And then you have other socio-economic components, including the Northeast Development Commission, which attempts to address the root causes of insecurity by addressing unemployment, infrastructure development, and things like that. Then there is also the effort by the Borno state government. In particular, there is what is called the Borno model, which was introduced as far back as 2019. And as a result of the combination of that Borno model and some of the efforts by the federal government, over 120,000 members of the two principal groups, the Jamaat al-Ahl Sunnah al-Dawati wal Jihad and the Islamic State in West Africa province, as well as their family members, have surrendered. And that is progress in all ramifications. I must also mention that as a result of the efforts by the Borno state government, several of the IDP camps that used to exist in the state no longer exist. So all of that is progress. But then, like you rightly indicated, of recent, we've seen a resurgence of attacks by these two major groups. Now, there are some possible reasons for this. Number one is the climatic condition. When the rains end, movement becomes easier for these groups. During the raining season, it's a little bit difficult for them sometimes to move around, but the rains have ended now, and so they are able to move around. The second possible reason is that the military effort is being diverted. As you are aware, Northwest is a new theater of operation. The military has begun another operation called Operation Bansanyama in the Northwest. So it's very possible. I'm not saying anything confidential when I say that the boots on ground that we have and the equipment repository of the military is stretched. And so it's possible that there has been some reduction, as it were, in the Northeast to other operations. Number three is the strategic attacks that we've seen of recent by at least the Islamic State in West Africa province. You recall that in Dambua, specifically, they attacked a military forward operating base there. And now what that meant is that after that attack, a lot of the locations in the southern half of Borno now became vulnerable, because that was the only functional, as it were, forward operating base in that part of Borno state. So once they crippled it, it means Chibok, and that's why of recent you've seen several attacks in Chibok. At least just a few days ago, 2 churches have been bombed in Chibok. We've also seen an increase in attack in the northern half of Borno, and the possible reason for this is what happened in Chad. You recall that a few weeks, months ago, there were several operations in Chad. So it's possible that the operatives that were there have been dislocated back into Nigeria, and so they're attacking that northern fringe between the Lake Chad Basin and Borno State. And then, of course, the fourth element, rather, is the deterioration in the socio-economic conditions in the country. So what it means is that we are seeing several attacks by the 2 groups where they block highways, and what they do is to collect money or sometimes abduct travelers and then collect ransom from the persons they've abducted. And our understanding is that they are going to use those money to increase their operational capability. So these are some of the reasons for the resurgence in the northeast of the country. If we discuss other parts of the country, I could also explain why we're seeing the resurgence.
Quite revealing. The same question to you, AIG Umar, but let me put yours a bit in proper context because of the position that you hold. Why have they regrouped so easily, despite the gains that have been made in the last couple of years? Because the gains would suggest that they have been decimated, arrests that have been made have led to debriefing that has given leads to sponsors, and we've been hearing stories about those convicted for terrorism financing. Yet we're seeing that either ISIL or JAS, I prefer to call it JAS because the name is quite long and it's tongue twisting, are regrouping and they're causing mayhem yet again in Borno.
Thank you very much. Even though I've not heard the beginning of the program, indeed the security agencies have made a lot of effort to ensure that there is a peace in the northeast, particularly in Borno, where I was an AIG and Commissioner of Police. The effort of the military and the police and other security agencies cannot be overemphasized. These insurgents have been decimated, honestly, and now there is resurfacing. They are resurfacing, and basically we must have to look in depth, looking at all the indices that of managing crisis. The Boko Haram that have been decimated, some of them have actually surrendered. But we were skeptical at the initial beginning of the process, whether some are willing to surrender voluntarily or they are coming in to spy and go back. And honestly, what we discovered, few of them came in, understood the real situation on the ground, and maneuvered back to the bush. Even though they are few in number, because we had over 96,000 surrendered Boko Haram, with about 300 fighters, and the rest are coerced. Maybe they are wives and farmers of these insurgents. And now that they have been pushed to the wall, they crossed over, they took advantage of our porous borders, planned their games, and now they are coming in to give a surprise, because terrorists or insurgents, they are used to giving surprise attack. They undergo hit and run operation, and this is what we are witnessing. So the security agencies need to go back to the drawing board and ensure this porosity of the borders we are having, because we don't have them massively internally in Borno State, because Borno has been liberated. Initially, over the years, 227 local governments of Borno State were overtaken by these terrorists. But with the effort of the military and the other security agencies, virtually only about 2 local governments, to my knowledge, were not liberated. That is Baga and Gozamala. What I understood that Guzamala is the only local government that is not liberated. Baga have returned, and certainly the porosity is what is of a concern, and that is why they are coming into these isolated areas and committing havoc. The number of people they slaughtered in Baga almost getting to 60, and in Kukawa about 35 is worrisome. And the security agencies need to strategize. So we need to go back to the drawing board, actually. The coordination that we're having with the civilian JTF, hunters, and vigilante, they master these areas of operation. And we are using them, both the military and the police, to scout for intelligence and balance the operation. The military need to re-engage and strategize. I don't know what is happening in the theater of operation right now, but this is one key and important suggestion, that we should collaborate and develop synergy. I remembered when we are in the theater of operation, actually both the Air Force, the soldiers and the police, the civil defense and the civilian JTF, we harmonized operation, and that was why we had this gain over time. The issue of them coming is one of their attributes. They always give surprise attack, but considering the happening in Borno State, Borno has been liberated, and but we are always we won't be surprised that there's always this kind of surprise attack, what they come around and kill and go hit and run.
Right.
The Borno State government is equally doing its very best. I know the effort of His Excellency, the Governor of Borno State, Babagana Professor Umar Zulum, is always responding to the request of the security agencies who masterminded the operation in the Quail to ensure that Borno remain peaceful. So the collaboration again with the state government is very, very key.
All right.
The traditional rulers are of utmost importance.
Well, Mr. Umar,
they know the hello?
Yes, I mean, you're making a very vital point about the traditional rulers, right? But there are other issues that we would like to raise so we can cover as much ground on the show. And just before I quickly go back to Dr. Adamu, I'd like to ask you, because I recall right after the attack on the police station and the killings of officers in Borno, the IGP ordered the zonal AIG to deploy resources for swift action to basically arrest those perpetrators, in this case the terrorists. And you know, we've heard time and again how our men, the military this time around, some of them go to the theater and they are faced with superior firepower, you know, from the terrorists. That's the military. Now the police has been asked to go and apprehend those same people that we've heard have superior firepower. So first, I'd like you to confirm, is that indeed the case? Do we have superior firepower, or they have superior firepower? And how well is the police able to even play in this theater when the military itself looks like it's overwhelmed, having been moved largely to the northwest, where there's majorly another issue at hand?
Well, thank you very much. You see, I have mentioned issue of synergy and collaboration. The IGP who gave this order is very, very right. Whenever there's an incident of this nature, the police need to go into it and unveil the circumstances behind it. And how do they do it? We are aware there's a declaration of state of emergency. In the theater of operation, the military takes the lead. And whatever we are going to do, or the police going to do, they need to collaborate with the police. There is no issue of superiority in firepower. The Nigerian military, as well as the police who are coming behind, have the capacity to deal with these insurgents. The issue is there are a lot of ungovernable spaces. These insurgents came in, give a surprise attack, which is hit and run, and they go back. The issue is, in most cases, whenever there is this kind of attack, they hit and run. So in most cases, except we have the intelligence, the Air Force use their wherewithal to ensure that these people are bombarded in their outskirts, in the bush. Otherwise, the issue of getting them arrested handy, it's always a difficult situation. I've been in the theater for almost 15 years. And whenever there's this attack, it's only with the effort of the Air Force that we are able to get them. We decimate them, we kill them, and because they do kill us. This incident that happened at Nganzai, it's only 2 policemen were killed, an inspector and one other, and I believe a civilian was equally shot. They fired a grenade.
Right.
You understand? It's not that they came closer and first. No, it's the use of IEDs. And that is their usual approach. I could remember in the beginning, whenever they want to attack a police station, they came with improvised IEDs, bombed the police station, and that overran the police station. So and that's what necessitated the coming
overall,
of the military.
You're saying overall that our forces, either military
yes.
or police, have superior firepower. Is that what you're saying? Overall, we have superior firepower.
Yes, of course, the military has superior power. Look, these insurgents, they only operate on the ground.
All right. Let me go to Dr. Adamu. Pardon me, AIG, so we can also get some other side to this. Dr. Adamu, perhaps you may want to respond to that point, because recently the CDS had also spoken about these terrorists being caught with dollars. In fact, we've had other chiefs, former chiefs, speaking to press, saying that they suspect either NGOs, other players in that field and vested interest as those responsible for also fueling this. So maybe you might want to respond to that point. But does it bother you that at this stage we're not able to say this is where this funding is coming from, these are the people funding it? Largely we're asking the UN, and it's understandable, but for a war we have tried to prosecute for this long, does it still bother you that we look like we're still back to square one, where we're trying to figure out who we are fighting against?
Coyote, we know the funding sources of this group, and I say this with all sense of responsibility. We have an agency of government called the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit that has local as well as international capability for tracing illicit funding within Nigeria. And I've interacted with that agency. The current person who is heading that agency is innovative. I've seen reports, I've seen technology that she has introduced that allows the monitoring of illicit funding into Nigeria. So we do know, and I was a little bit surprised when the Chief of Defense Staff actually made that statement. Perhaps it speaks to this synergy that we're discussing. Is it that perhaps he's not aware of the functions of this agency? Or I'm not sure. Maybe when next you interact with him or any of his staff members, you can raise that question. So that's one. Number two is that the UN is actually present in Nigeria. Apart from the UN as a body, there are UN agencies, in particular the UNODC, that deals with crime, and especially organized crime. It monitors and releases reports consistently, including on Nigeria. If you go online now, just Google, not even any sophisticated, just Google it. You will see the reports by UNODC on illicit funding in Nigeria. The shadow economy that allows groups like the Jamaat al-Ahl al-Sunnah al-Dawati wal-Jihad and the Islamic State in West Africa province to operate, as well as the mechanisms with which they move their funding, is known to us. So I don't want us to move on that premise, Coyote, but this is a public forum, and people are listening both nationally and internationally. This thing is known. And that moves me to the next point, accountability within our security system. I've had the AIG, and as an expert, if I am doing an assessment, there are things I look at. He's talked about the capability of the terrorist groups. Now, if you know you have an adversary that has a capability, the only thing you should do is to block that capability. And frankly, it's not you and I'm a private practitioner, you are a journalist. That responsibility is not yours. Neither is it mine. It is the responsibility of the security agencies. If they are using IEDs to carry out their attacks. And recently they've started using drones, actually. So it is not my responsibility or your responsibility to prevent them from acquiring this capability and to use this methodology. It is the responsibility of the security agencies. This operation has been ongoing for more than a decade. Who are we waiting for to come and stop these capabilities? There are three oxygens. Sorry, I'm using oxygens. There's nothing like that. But there are three, things that allow terrorism to thrive in any theater of conflict. Number one is the ability to recruit. Number two is the ability to acquire weaponry. And then number three is the ability to acquire funding for their various activities. Unless we look at these three things and block the oxygen that allows them to thrive, well, we're going to continue, unfortunately, these things for a very long time. And so this brings me to the role of the National Assembly. I think the National Assembly, as the arm of government that should be exercising oversight over the executive arm of government, needs to wake up to their responsibility. We can't continue to have this situation where today we make progress and then the next day we go back to where we are. And the reason is because of these three things I've mentioned. As long as we don't focus on blocking these three things, then unfortunately we're going to remain in these circumstances. I'm not a harbinger of bad news, but reality, sadly.
Zibi, let's come back to you. When you said the police has the capacity, I'm not going to argue that with you, but the military is really having a hard time, not to talk of the police. For instance, I think yesterday we got a report from Borno that a specified number of soldiers are missing. I think they went to recover some bodies. So I'm just trying to paint in a vivid picture for you of what's playing out. And I know you know that environment pretty well, having been there for 15 years. So what can the police do differently to help in this war? Because going head to head with terrorists, I don't know whether the police has that capacity. You may say they do, but I'm looking at the way it can be, because if something has happened for this long, as Dr. Kabiru has said, then we need to change strategy. What can the police do differently in terms of intelligence, being proactive?
Thank you very much. You see, the police has its own core mandates, while the military has their own. The duties of the police basically is internal, and apart from being internal, they equally collaborate and support the military. What we are saying is the military are fighting in the theater of operation, they are equally fighting with our mobile police. There's an injection of mobile police in the theater. They are equally at the forefront of the fight. And honestly, why we are saying that our police are capable, it's not issue of police fighting war. Under natural cause, police are not supposed to go and start fighting war. Those liberated areas need to be occupied by the police and ensure that civil authority is restored. This is what we are after. But due to when you see policemen engage in the fight, is part of the constitutional mandate that the police shall perform other military duties as may be assigned, and that is why the police are equally in the forefront. But the major responsibility of the police is to secure wherever the military have secured and liberated. The police are supposed to go there and ensure that there is civility in those areas. That is the capability, so that normalcy will be restored, social activities by strife. The military, I still insist that the military has the capacity and have the ability to deal with all these insurgents. There is no superiority complex. The military, our own military, our own are far more superior. The issue of this fight, actually I've had the CDS, a very fine senior officer who was in the theater of operation. And the issue of funding is key. These terrorists have existed for this long, and the issue is, how are they getting brand new firearms? How are they getting new clean ammunitions? How are they being recovered after being disbanded or killed?
If I may,
found
CP,
them with
just a moment, CP.
dollars.
Can you hear me, sir? Dr. Kabiru had mentioned the fact that the sources of these terrorists, the funding sources, are known. So why do we keep repeating this? Where are they getting? Where are they getting? If there are people that know where they are getting.
No, I've not had Kabiru because we're having a problem in the studio. It's only when you ask me I'm conversing with you, but
Okay.
I've not been hearing anything from Kabiru. So I never knew that the matter had been discussed. But the issue of funding is key. The issue of recruitment is key because they must have a space where they are being trained to come and fight this war. So, but what you asked me is the capability of the police. The police have the capability to ensure there is good policing in all the liberated areas. The police are not the ones fighting the war.
Okay. All right, AIG, let me take you to Mr. Kabiru. Mr. Kabiru, I want you to speak to intelligence here because that's a space you play in. We have the NFIU, the DSS, the NSA's office, we have the NIA, all of these agencies that are supposed to be, their job is basically being proactive so that things don't escalate because we're now seeing this resurgence. Is there a modification we need or we're just not brutally honest enough to face this thing headlong and that's why we're where we are?
Geoffrey, like I said earlier on, I'm a private player, and with all sense of responsibility, when I did the analysis for 2024, I realized that what is happening right now is going to happen. I say this with all sense of responsibility. And I took my time, wrote a letter to I'm not going to mention names, but to the various coordinators within the national security sector to advise them. In fact, I asked for a meeting so that we take steps to enhance intelligence and then to take preventive measures. Not a single of them responded to my letter. I followed up with phone calls. I know most of them personally, and I followed up. None of them responded. So the element here is one of accountability, right? Like you rightly indicated, we have at least about 10 agencies that have very strong intelligence capabilities and that are operational. That is when you don't even add the international component. We have liaison agreements, Geoffrey, with several countries of the world where they share intelligence with us. We share with them, they share with us. So I do not think it's a lack of intelligence. There is no security department of the 29 that we have that does not have an intelligence wing. In fact, let's even bring it home. Ministry of Interior that manages through the civil defense, the private security sector. Think about the number of private security operatives that we have in this country and their deployment. At the last time I checked, they are up to 10 million. So imagine a situation, Geoffrey, where we are harvesting the intelligence from these 10 million operatives through the civil defense. There is no house, there is no corporate office that I know of in Nigeria that does not have a private security department. So that if there is a crime in that location or any proximate location, that private security firm that is guarding that house or office would have knowledge of that crime. Now imagine if that is being harvested. So and we need to wake up. It's one of accountability. We have the resources, we have the capability, but we're not using it, sadly. And like I indicated, as a private player, I used the capabilities that I have. I did an analysis, I did a projection, and I saw, with AI, you can model what is going to happen in the next couple of months.
It's gone up again.
From what is been online.
I'm listening now.
Clearly the trajectory. And so once you see that trajectory, what the next thing to do is to prevent it. But where there's no accountability, where if you don't prevent it and it happens like it's happening at the moment and nobody is being held accountable, then sadly there is no compulsion, as it were. And I think that is where we need to look at. This is a call to the president directly to please strengthen accountability within the security sector. Let's start holding our security officials accountable. Otherwise, this thing will not end. I just told you that after an attack in Damboa, we are now seeing attacks in southern Borno. Even a 101 in security, in criminology, would know that this is going to happen as long as you have the intelligence capability to look at that strategic vision. Look at the map of Borno, see where Damboa is located, look at the forward operating bases that we have around that location, and then ask yourself, why is the Jamaat al-Ahli al-Dawati wal-Jihad or ISWAP attacking that particular forward operating base? Is it not to weaken its capability so that it cannot stop or prevent attacks in the locations that it's interested in? And then a few days after that, we now start seeing attack in those locations. So my point is we need to strengthen accountability. We have the intelligence capabilities, but for some reasons we're not using them judiciously. And it pains me. My heart is really aching under the circumstances that I saw this. It's going to happen. I wrote, nobody responded, and we're where we are. And frankly, nothing is being done to those that should have taken the action to prevent the attacks.
And you know, this places a huge question mark on efforts claimed by the federal government to have dispensed with 1,700 terrorism cases, convicted 742 or thereabout terrorists, and in fact also dispensed with about 15 terrorism financing cases in May 2024. There should be more results in that area if these progresses are being made as claimed by the government. But we must thank you, gentlemen, as this is clearly an ongoing conversation. We've been talking with Mr. Abdul Umar, who is the Assistant Inspector General of Police, Zone 16, and former Commissioner of Police, Borno State, who joined us from our Kano studio. We've also had Dr. Kabir Adamu, a security risk management consultant and Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, who joined us via Zoom from Katsina. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And there's more on security. This time we head to Kaduna State, where, on the contrary, and pleasantly so, there's good news to tell. So what's the template that Kaduna has deployed? Join us for answers after this time out.